Berlin's great day dawns with the arrival of the Olympic flame at the end of its 2,000-mile journey from Greece. And meanwhile, a packed stadium and flag-draped cheering streets greet Chancellor Hitler on his way to perform the opening ceremony.
Ich verkünde die Spiele von Berlin zur Feier der 11. Olympiade neuer Zeitrechnung als eröffnet.
50 nations are taking part in the Olympic Games this summer, including Great Britain and the United States, although many of their athletes feared before the Games even started that the Games would be used as political propaganda for the Third Reich. At the opening ceremony, the French dipped their flag and gave Hitler the salute he wanted. They said they did it to avoid an international incident. They got great applause. The Americans, the British, and some others refused to give the raised arm salute. The roar of approval given to the entry of the German teams proved to many that the Games really were going to be used for propaganda, to show the world the excellence of the blonde, blue-eyed, so-called true-blooded German people. Indeed, the Games have been used to show the world Hitler's belief that they are the master race. The picture of German racial superiority, which the Nazis have been painting since they came to power 3 years ago, has, however, been rather spoilt at the Games.
And now for the final. The 6 fastest sprinters of the world are getting ready. Borschmeier, Germany. Wyckoff, America. Owens. Strandberg of Sweden, Osendorf of Holland, and Metcalf of America. Owens is ahead. Strandberg and Borschmeier fighting. Osendorf challenges Wyckoff. Metcalf comes up, but Owens wins in 10.3. Second, Metcalf, America. Third, Osendorf, Holland.
Hitler couldn't hide his anger. And Jesse Owens, hero of the Games, won his 4th gold medal. It has shown a side of Germany that the Nazis have tried to hide from the hundreds of thousands of visitors here in Germany for the Games. So while the Nazi regime is enjoying the great propaganda victory and publicity which surround the Games, we've been looking behind the scenes at the real face of the Third Reich. And we've uncovered growing evidence of deliberately planned persecution of opponents by the Nazi regime. It's not only political opponents, communists and social democrats and trade unions, who've been suffering at the hands of the secret police and the SS. The Jewish minority in Germany is also the target of a campaign of hatred, terror, and humiliation unleashed by Nazi stormtroops on the orders of the party leadership. And this anti-Jewish policy, anti-Semitism, as it's called, is being made part of German law. So now any offender against the Nazis' code of racial hygiene risks being publicly humiliated and sentenced to hard labor in one of the many concentration camps which have been set up throughout Germany since 1933. But why are the Jews being persecuted in this way? Why do the Nazis think of themselves as a master race? The defenders of European civilization against what they call the attack of the Untermenschen, the subhumans. In 1924, while Hitler was in prison after his attempt to seize power in Munich had failed, he wrote his autobiography, which he called Mein Kampf, My Struggle. In Mein Kampf, Hitler attacked the Jews. In fact, there are more entries under Jews in the index than anything else except National Socialism. No one need be in doubt about what he said or intended to do about the Jews, as Punch pointed out 3 years ago, when already over 1 million copies had been sold, if not read. He blamed the Jews for Germany's defeat in the Great War, for the revolution which followed, and even for the runaway inflation of 1923, which nearly wrecked the German economy. Of course, blaming the Jews in Europe for any trouble isn't new. In the Middle Ages, Jews often had to wear special badges to show they were Jews. They had to live in ghettos, their own special quarters, in cities, as outcasts from Christian society. When the Black Death struck, it was the Jews who were often blamed for poisoning the Christians' drinking water. In the riots which always followed, mobs looted and burned the Jewish ghettos. They murdered those who would not give up their faith, man, woman, or child. All this happened not only in Germany, but in other countries, such as England, and in Russia, where in the first 10 years of this century, Christians made several murderous attacks on Jews in Russian cities. Christian charity wasn't being shown to the Jews. But in most countries, Jews had equal legal rights by the beginning of this century. In Germany, Jews began to take their place in German society as leading politicians, scientists like Albert Einstein, and artists. Under the Weimar Republic with President Ebert, the Jews were guaranteed equal rights for the first time. But many of the new socialist leaders were Jews, so it was easy to say that anyone who wanted change was a Jew. Those who feared change could be persuaded to fear the socialists and hate the Jews. The German Workers' Party was formed in Munich in 1919. It was led by Karl Drexler, who hated Jews. It was this party which Hitler joined in September 1919. He was such a powerful public speaker that crowds came to his meetings. Soon he became the Führer, the official leader, and renamed the party the National Socialist German Workers' Party, nicknamed the Nazi Party. Anti-Semitism was one of its main beliefs, giving a voice to many who blamed the Jews for any wrong. So although in Mein Kampf, Hitler has tried to present the racist doctrine of his party as something original and unique, in fact, it's nothing of the sort. But he did set out to sell or push the Nazis' racial ideas to the people of Germany in the same way as the American advertising agencies sell soap. In Mein Kampf, he wrote, "Who would be impressed by an advertisement which attempted to sell one sort of soap, but said that the other brands were just as good?" But after 1924, all this had little appeal in a Germany enjoying its first boom since the Great War due to the investment of American loans. Only when the bubble of economic prosperity burst at the end of 1929 with the great crash in America did people really begin to listen to the Nazis. For the communists, the world slump was simply due to the capitalist system. For the Nazis, it was proof that there was a Jewish plot to take over the world. The communists gained support from workers fed up with the Social Democrats. But the middle classes began to desert the liberals and turn to Hitler, who seemed likely to get things done. After their breakthrough in the polls in September 1930, when the Nazis became the second largest party in the Reichstag, the anti-Semitism of the Nazis became increasingly vicious. Now that a lot of their support was coming from peasant farmers, artisans and shopkeepers threatened with ruin by the slump, the Nazi leaders told them that this slump was caused by international Jewish money. At the same time, they also suggested that world communism was controlled by Jews. The middle classes were bombarded by anti-Semitic propaganda. For example, the Nazis have blamed the big Jewish department stores for putting small shops out of business. In fact, many of the small shops were owned by Jews, who also went out of business. But truth hasn't been an obstacle for the Nazis. As Dr. Goebbels, their chief propaganda organizer, has said, if you tell a lie, tell a big lie. If you repeat it often enough, people will eventually believe it. Was all this just Hitler's way of getting support when people were seeking anyone to blame for the hard times? All the leading British newspapers agreed Hitler would become a moderate statesman once he became Chancellor. Chancellor Hitler has now been in power for 3 years. Are there any signs of moderation? Well, on the 1st of April 1933, the Nazis organized a nationwide boycott of Jewish shops and businesses. Soon signs began to appear outside towns and villages saying, Jews are not welcome. They've been removed while the Olympic Games are on. Jewish doctors and lawyers have been forced out of work or only allowed to deal with other Jews. Even popular children's books show how Jewish students have been turned out of schools and universities to avoid what the Nazis call overcrowding. When at school, Jewish children have been humiliated. On this blackboard is written, "The Jew is our greatest enemy." Jewish families are turned out of swimming pools because the Nazis say they are racially unclean. In parks, they have to sit on seats marked for Jews only. Last year, in September, the government announced new laws for the protection of German blood and honor. These Nuremberg laws, as they're known, not only take away from Jews their rights as citizens, but as the violently anti-Jewish newspaper Der Stürmer had earlier wanted, they even forbid marriage or sexual relations between Jews and true Germans. It is so-called true-blooded Germans who are being encouraged by the government to marry and produce children for the Third Reich. This is the master race Hitler wants. This is how he is training the blonde, blue-eyed youth of Germany to think and react. He tells them, "We wish to be one people, and you, my young ones, are now to become this people."
Wir wollen ein Volk sein. Und ihr, meine Jugend, sollt dieses Volk nun werden.
Even when they go to school, they're shown specially made Nazi films to help them learn to despise weakness and worship strength. This silent film shows a boy being given a key to a magic castle so he can learn about fear and prove himself. Watch how some of the monsters will look like Nazi pictures of Jews. So, in 1936, Olympic year, how are we to understand this other side of people who claim they are the master race, who persecute their own people because they're Jews or disagree, who have driven even the gifted, like Einstein, into exile? Has the exiled writer Brecht the answer?
I'm not unjust, but not courageous either. They pointed out their world to me today. I saw the bloodstains on the pointing finger and quickly said, I like my world that way. I stood before their world, beneath their truncheons, and spent the whole day judging all I saw. Saw butchers who seemed suited to their functions, and when they asked, do you like it, I said sure. And from that instant my professed opinion was, better be a coward than in your grave. To keep from falling under their dominion, I kept approving what one can't approve. I see them coming, see the butchers marching, would like to bawl out stop, but since meanwhile I know their agents are behind me watching, I hear my own voice bawling at them, Heil! Since poverty and baseness leave me cold, my pen is silent, times are on the move. Yet all that's dirtiest in your dirty world includes, I know, the fact that I approve.